There you
All right, I'm going to call this meeting of the Coventry Technical Review Committee to order. It is Monday, May 19th at 1:34 p.m. We will go through the agenda. The first order of business is call to order and determination of a quorum. I do see that we have a quorum of the TRC present. Next is emergency evacuation plan. We're all just heading out right that door, right outside. Next is approval of minutes. We actually have two sets of minutes that are available. And Alex, we have both of the sets of minutes complete.
Yep.
Okay. So this is the only thing that TRC takes any motions on. Do I hear a motion on the March 17th minutes?
Make a motion.
All right. Do I have a second on that?
I'll second.
All right. So I have a motion and a second to approve the March 17th minutes. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. March 17th is approved. Do I hear a motion for the April 14th minutes?
Make a motion.
All right. Motion by Chief Heist. Do I have a second on that? Great. Second by Chief Katie. All in favor of approving the March 14th minutes?
Aye.
All right. Any opposed? You guys have it. Minutes are approved. And Kevin, why don't you take this one? You can move seats if you want. You like to keep the head for the it's like a firing one. All right, next we'll move on to our first order of new business for discussion and or comments. Agenda item 4.1 Hoxie Court Place. This is a pre-application of a minor subdivision with street extension. This is for comments to the Planning Commission. The applicant seeks to merge two existing lots and subdivide them into three new conforming lots. The existing dwelling at 31 Hoxie will remain on proposed lot 2, which will be 1.24 acres in size. Proposed lots 1 and 3 will be just under a half an acre in each respectively, and will be developed with one single family dwelling on each. The applicant is currently proposing that all three lots would be accessible via a proposed cul-de-sac off of Notre Dame Street. So Hoxie, feel free, you can join us at the head of the table if you'd like. You can pull up chairs as you need to. I'll let you guys decide. The way we do this is basically we go around the table. Everyone will offer their comments and you can just hear them. You may have received emails already, maybe from some that just came today. After the comments, you have an opportunity to ask questions or if you have any response, but generally it's the comments are sort of already made, and this is really just for the Planning Commission to understand as we gear up for their review. So why don't we start on this one? Dennis, do you mind reading this off?
Sure. My comments are as follows. Per Article 6, Section F, minor subdivision involving street creation or extension of the subdivision regulations. This proposal will be reviewed by the Planning Commission rather than administratively because it includes a street extension. The applicant should clarify the length of the proposed cul-de-sac extension from Notre Dame Street to determine whether a waiver from Article 13, Section B8 of the subdivision regulations will be needed. Planning staff should support granting waivers from the sidewalk and curbing requirements of the subregs, as these would not connect with an existing network. However, staff does not expect street trees to be incorporated into the site plan. The applicant should seek clarity from Kent County Water Authority as to whether a through connection of the existing water lines under Notre Dame and Hoxie Court, both of which are currently stub-end on either side of the subject parcel, is desired. If so, a utility easement shall be added to the site plan. Staff recommends the applicant use the pre-application process to explore alternative roadway designs that would facilitate the connection of Hoxie Court and Notre Dame Street, with further review by town staff and the Planning Commission.
And then before we move on to the one, just quick clarification. I think it was just misread. Staff does expect street trees to be incorporated into the site plan.
Yes.
All right. So you want to keep us going?
Stormwater management practices must be provided to treat the water quality volume of runoff from the proposed rooftops and driveways in accordance with the Coventry subdivision regulations and the state stormwater manual and the state of Rhode Island stormwater management guidance for the individual single-family residential lot development. Practices could consist of qualifying pervious areas, rain gardens, or infiltration systems such as dry wells or crushed stone trenches. The engineering department will work with the engineer of record and the fire department to design a cul-de-sac that is appropriate for the project. Submission of a town of Coventry soil erosion and sediment control application will be required for the project. End of comments.
Go. Chief,
This one, I had no comments at this time.
thank you. And then, is this in your area, too, Katie? Or is this one technically in Hopkins?
No, this one is mine.
Okay.
Yeah. So, what I've got for comments, the water supply for the fire suppression will need to be within the maximum distance from the nearest hydrant allowed by the fire code. I did not see a hydrant on the plan, but going back to planning's comments with the water lines are stubbed on each street, so we really couldn't tell how far the distance would be to the nearest fire hydrants, adding in the length of the cul-de-sac to the center into the actual houses once they're built. The radius and the diameter of the cul-de-sac appear to be acceptable. However, the width of the road itself in the plan, it didn't show the width of the road because it was, it shows the diameter and the overall radius out to the outside, but it doesn't show the actual width of the road if it maintains that 20 feet around, if you do the math. So some way the architects got it, but it didn't show it on here, just.
Yeah,
didn't
the
show the
island
width.
Will probably come out anyways with the new design. for sure.
Oh,
So,
really?
Yeah, so that'll.
Yeah, the
So it'll
Yeah.
make more room for like that
Yeah.
inside turning wheel
Yeah.
to go around, yep. And that was it, then I had been oversight, as far as I had been comment later about the streetlights. Generally we try to get a street light in a cul-de-sac if we could, one at the end, I'm not sure how many are existing coming into the cul-de-sac, but one in the center would be good. Are they eliminating the island in the middle for water runoff, is that what that's gonna be, or just gonna eliminate?
Yeah, there's a bunch of reasons, yeah, it's,
Yeah,
they're gonna be maintaining in
the center.
turning, yeah, if the turning will be.
Right.
Yeah.
Like plowing wise and stuff like that, so it'll be all open, in other words.
Yep.
Oh, yeah, okay.
And then before we get to Mr. McGee's comments, there's one concept that planning had, it was one of planning's comments was to explore the concept of a through street as opposed to a cul-de-sac. Really what we have is the terminus of two stub ends of two public rights of way. We'd end up with a cul-de-sac that would be, maybe approximately 100 feet, give or take, from another. We're not suggesting that we think this is the design the town knows it prefers, but we thought it was worth exploring. This is what that concept would look like. Chief, first question for you, Hoxie is extremely narrow.
It is.
Does Coventry service that, or do we have an agreement with West Warwick to service the houses on Hoxie?
It's probably half and half, I'd have to look that up, to be honest with you, because a lot of the streets in town are split. It
Yeah,
depends on
this is
different
one of them,
districts,
like,
yeah.
this is actually right off the map here.
Right.
This
Depends
black
on the
dotted line
address.
is the town line
West
here.
Warwick line,
So, I mean, the only way to get to Hoxie is through West Warwick.
right.
So I kind of wanted, I mean, it's a pre-app, this is just for discussion purposes. I wanted to know if anyone on the town's end felt strongly about, whether a through road had benefits, beyond the initial cul-de-sac design that you see there. I think planning's just looking for an exploration of that. We don't have a strong sense right now on whether that's a preferred design or not. We understand from the applicant, they do have a preference with the cul-de-sac, but I think that it's worth us trying to understand. I think you two probably have the biggest piece of this in terms of how you would want to maintain this moving forward and how access would be created. I would assume Hoxie is considered a very tough road for fire access now, very narrow, and nowhere to turn around when you get down there.
Yeah, and then the main problem we run into is on the narrow roads is with people double parking, and then there's no cul-de-sac at the end of it, so everybody has to back out.
Yeah.
And we do prefer the cul-de-sac that doesn't have a center island, because now the trucks, if they had to do a backup, there's room in the center, like most of them were built years ago. Now it seems like the islands are being built more now for like the aesthetics of it.
I think we wouldn't have the island regardless. So if it's a cul-de-sac, we would not have the island.
Okay,
So
yeah,
I think that the concept is, this doesn't have to be a up or yes decision. I'm just curious of the TRC members that are just seeing this for the first time, if this jumps out to you as something you'd like to see, maybe additional details around, or if this is something that you don't think is a necessary design.
I'd like to give it another look
Okay.
and then comment on it if I could, outside of the meeting with the group.
Okay.
Just to give it another look and see, which way we'd be approaching things on different calls, and
Gotcha.
I can understand the cul-de-sac idea, it illuminates the through traffic, you know,
For sure.
as far as a nice private little neighborhood.
I'm sure the neighbors would prefer a cul-de-sac.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
I'm sure that the subject property owners, I think, have indicated they prefer a cul-de-sac.
Yeah.
They're leaving one house, which would remain at the
Yeah.
end of Hoxie. The other new houses would remain at the end of their own. People generally like to be at the end of the dead end.
Yeah,
So really, I'm trying to sort out whether we, the town, have a preference, or if we're generally neutral or could go either way.
Mhm.
Is this something that you think would you both like a chance to review this outside of the meeting?
Absolutely. It's through road, that's with elimination of a cul-de-sac for maintenance, snow removal, sanitation trucks, much easier to have them
Right.
through traffic than having to deal with a cul-de-sac.
Do you want more time to review this and assess sort of that, or do you feel like you already know what your comment would be on that?
I would have a little more time to
Okay.
see it and see what the width of the road's gonna be.
Okay, I just asked, let's see if we can get those comments together if possible in the next few days. It's a pre-app. But I think the staff is gonna deliver a staff report to the planning commission, and we'd like the benefit of knowing your more nuanced
Yeah, I
review.
can have a
And then the
comment
applicant
today,
can
like
review
tomorrow.
it, and then they're obviously free to provide their own perspective to the planning commission as well. This isn't going to change what is the application we're reviewing. We're still reviewing what you submitted. This is more just whether there's comments that are gearing up for seeking more details around that alternative. Does that make sense?
Yes, we did come up with a little
Oh.
mock-up. Is that, should
Yeah,
I wait
please.
for later or?
And we have you doing?
Yes, I'm doing.
Hi.
We sort of met briefly.
Yeah.
It creates a lot of problems. The building envelope for this lot becomes extremely tight.
We noticed that's the biggest challenge with it. You can tell here, we probably give it less. We make our turn a little tighter. I mean, this is just a mock-up sketch. This lot meets area, but the building envelope's small. If this was deemed to be the preferred method, I think staff would absolutely work with you on consideration of setback relief if that was an important
They need
component.
relief on many different fronts. Yes.
Gotcha. I think when we did it, we thought that the lots would not need relief. At least it's close, but this lot has just enough area. Yours may be a little different.
And we were also trying to keep in mind that you're making a more narrow road as you're approaching
Understood.
Hoxie. And we also need enough frontage on this lot. So trying to combine all these different factors, maybe I don't think we have enough area here either. No, the way we drew it, we didn't have enough area, but with the new front setback line,
Yeah.
you can't even put a house in there, and we also have to deal with the septic system, and we want to keep away from this existing septic system as well.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of challenges on the site. So I think we understand that. Staff would absolutely work with you to provide support to the variances. Ultimately, this is all pre-app, and we can get a read from the planning commission if they have a preferred design layout.
Mhm.
I think they'd react to what they're hearing staff say in terms of design layout and the options for that road. But I think the planning commission will get a read from them too, if one of these things needs relief and one of them doesn't. If that changes them, or if they would say, we want the road to be the way it should be. And then we would support relief in order to accomplish your development goals, which is, you still want to know you can site an appropriate sized house here. You know, where you want to site it. I'm sure that's the biggest challenge, is the setbacks on this probably create a really tight building
Yeah.
envelope.
And we have other concerns, such as would we be forced to extend the sewer line, because as right now, we're actually proposing to go the septic system route rather than tie into the sewer. So would we be forced to extend the sewer line? There's more.
Do we know
paving.
where sewer is out here?
I don't,
This,
I didn't look at it because I saw the septic.
I've been out there, it goes down a ways, it doesn't go all the way to the end of Hoxie as it stands though.
Where's the is sewer closer
we did show
on
it
the
on our
seal?
plan. Hoxie Court has sewer.
And there's no sewer coming from this way?
I don't think
I think we
so.
looked and we didn't find anything.
We didn't,
Yeah, the portion of Hoxie that stops at the West Warwick line is where everything seemed to end, and we dealt with both engineering departments in both towns. And they just pointed fingers in every which way, so it seems kind of one of those weird areas.
And see if you can identify if these lots are marked in the wastewater facilities. But I have a feeling these lots are not obligated to.
Is it the yellow and green chart?
Yeah, the yellow and green. Right there. Right by the wall.
I'm positive then.
You're positive they're not? Okay, which means that there's not an obligation on your part to connect to sewer. Unless, I mean, obviously, there's a discussion to be had if you're interested in extending sewer.
They looked into it, our clients looked into it, but just with the cost of digging up the road, placing all the pavement, it's actually more expensive than two separate brand new septic systems.
Understood. Yeah,
So
I
that's,
think,
and that's kind of the reason why we're hoping to do the cul-de-sac rather than extra paving to connect two roads.
could you tell from that plan over there, Alex?
Hmm.
It's not designated.
It doesn't show that area.
Oh, okay. I think, you know, shooting from the hip and what Joe just said, it seems that these properties are not obligated to tie to sewer, which means that the act of subdividing doesn't then obligate you either. I don't think the roadway design is something that we would then say, well, that changes everything. I think we're just looking at roadway design for the sake of the benefit for emergency access and ease of public maintenance. It is a public right of way. The town will be responsible for its long-term use and maintenance, so I think that's what we're interested in trying to sort out. We understand that Hoxie is substandard in a lot of ways. I don't think that this action was not seeking to pin on this application to improve the width and the condition of Hoxie through the length. It would be more just understanding how this area works here. I can understand that Hoxie would be a difficult task to improve the full length of it up to that point. That's my assessment, but I'm gonna leave it there because these two might have more thoughts and comments they can offer when the staff report will wrap those comments up, and then we'll kind of basically, you'll get a copy of it. So when we go into the meeting, you'll have a sense of any of the other staff comments. Do you have any other thoughts or questions based on what you've heard?
I had one question, but you already answered it with the width of Hoxie, because it seems if you want to connect the two of those, that street seems to be way too narrow to do something like that.
Yeah, you're kind of limited on that Fairview Ave, and it's so narrow up
Yeah,
there.
I mean, just turning
Oh.
onto Hoxie from Fairview is a nightmare.
Right, yeah.
Just with my truck and my trailer is ridiculous.
Like a sanitation truck.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and so
Yeah,
Yeah.
you said something about the sanitation truck in my head. I'm like, how the hell are you gonna get a truck down there?
Well, get down there now.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Yeah. I mean, like, the idea is that people are finding a way now. I mean, I don't know the last time the police had to go down Hoxie, or I'm sorry, the fire had to go down Hoxie. It's probably been a while.
Yeah, there's not enough houses on there to generate a lot of calls, but.
But I mean,
it can
Hoxie's
happen.
real tight. I mean, the public right of way width really tightens up.
Yeah.
Yeah, at the end, yeah.
So it's not even as if it's just not an improved right of like it you probably might have even have it paved pretty close edge to edge in this very narrow section here. So it's not as if there's an opportunity to widen it. It's really just in the given conditions, what's better. Any other questions or?
About any of the questions or just this specific?
Anything. This is, I think it's your opportunity to sort of make sure you understand it.
The total length of the cul-de-sac extension is 188.22 feet.
Do you have a pen?
End to end, we were assuming, we measured like along the center line, but all the way to the end of the cul-de-sac. So if we interpreted that correctly, I don't think we would need a waiver.
188%?
Yeah.
That sound right now?
180 is the minimum.
Okay, all right. That's good to know.
And we had a question on prints that are requested for Wednesday, but is that?
Oh, yeah, we can handle that
Okay.
after.
Um,
Yeah. Dennis will get you that information right after the meeting, as you need.
So that would be wonderful if we could remove the center
Oh,
island.
that's no
requirement.
matter what. If
We
we
were
stick
just
with,
following the little.
yeah, that's a piece
sketch.
of the subdivision regs we want to remove.
That's great.
Um,
I think we've already covered a lot of them. Fire suppression, we haven't gotten that far, so. Yeah, welcoming all your comments on them.
okay. That covers it?
Yes.
Even on your day off, Teresa. All right, so I think that wraps us up for this one. Thank you
Okay.
very much. We'll share, Dennis will share a copy of the staff report, which will go out probably on Friday. That way you can see what any of the final comments were. And then the comments and the staff report are the audience of the planning commission, and obviously you can kind of prepare your own presentation. It's pre-app, really just discussion. It's just trying to vet these issues out, make sure we're all generally on the same page.
Appreciate it.
Nice copy.
Yeah, those are 5 copies.
Sure, yeah, no, we
And
take
that's
them.
just a,
Yeah, understood, I mean, it's probably a little better than maybe.
thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, so moving along in our agenda, the next item for new business is item 4.2, the Lomastro plat. This is for comments of the planning commission. This is the preliminary plan minor subdivision with an associated dimensional variance. The applicant proposes to subdivide 52.71 acre parcel into 2 lots, leaving 1 existing single-family dwelling on a roughly 5-acre lot and creating a new 47.69 acre lot from the remainder. The applicant is seeking a zoning variance for an approximate 9% reduction in the required frontage in the RR5 zone, and the project will therefore be heard by the planning commission via unified development review. This is located in and around 730 Cars Trail. So why don't we, Dennis, do you mind leading us off again, please?
Sure. Planning's comments for Lomastro plat are as follows. The applicant is seeking a 2-lot subdivision with an associated dimensional variance for substandard frontage. Proposed parcel A will have 271.84 feet of frontage, and proposed parcel B will have 271.83 feet of frontage, which is roughly 9% less than the required frontage of 300 feet in the RR5 zone. Planning staff will support granting waivers from the sidewalk and curbing requirements to subregs, as these would not connect with any existing network. In lieu of planting street trees, staff would accept a 50-foot no-cut buffer along the full length of subject parcels carved for trail frontage. This should not be understood to prohibit the creation of a driveway to serve future development. As this application proposes only to subdivide the existing parcel with no development component at this time, planning staff would advise the following items are not required at this time, but will be upon submittal of any future building permit application. 1, site plan showing the proposed structures comply with zoning code. 2, approval from the applicable fire district. 3, a letter from the qualified professional stating Wetlands Act will not apply to this property. And 4, proposed OWTS and wells to support the new structure.
Thank you very much, Dennis. So,
Engineering has no comments.
all right. Chief Ice?
For this one, no comments at this time.
Great. And then Lomastro, I did hear from the representative from Western Fire, who has no comments on this one at this time. Anything from you?
Public Works has no comments.
All right, so all your comments came from planning, and then Nolan, you just sort of now did, and you might have gotten an email just recently. with these comments. Okay, Nolan, do you have any questions, responses based on what you heard?
Do I need to show that the no cut buffer before the planning meeting? Like, is that something I need to show?
It's not required. It will be a condition of approval, and you'll need to put it on your final plan. So
Yeah.
I don't think we need to see that revision. That's a pretty minor change to the plan.
Yeah.
And that's generally been standard. And when we say no cut, what we're referring to are significant trees. you
Right,
know?
yeah,
Like, you know,
correct.
We understand brush and those issues.
Yeah,
I think when you get past prelim and you're looking at a final plan, a record plan, we'll want it on there.
yeah. And is that something I would need to show both lots as well as on Flat River Road there? That would be both.
You know, the
frontages?
Flat River Road, I mean, do you have a sense from your client if they understand, you know, clearly you have 1 lot, 1 buildable unit. The whole lot is bisected by wetlands, so you're either building on one or the other, not both. Do you have a sense right now on where they want to build?
Plan right now is just to show them using the lot currently, 5 acres to fit the zone, and then get, sell the land and then.
They're gonna, so they're not developing it.
Correct.
Someone else is they're gonna sell that land. to
Correct.
someone else. Okay. When we wrote this, actually, I think we had the caveat that the 50-foot no cut buffer is along the full length of the subject parcel's cars trail frontage. In our opinion, there's no way to leave a 50-foot no cut buffer at the Flat River Road frontage. If you end up needing a driveway through there,
You're gonna need to cut, yeah,
that's wide enough to get to your driveway.
Right.
If you're not needing a driveway in there, there's no need for you to go cutting anyway.
Correct.
So that's why we're leaving the no cut on cars, trail, frontage only. Does
Okay,
that make sense?
yeah, that's fine.
Okay. Did I,
Yes, that's it.
any other questions, Norman?
That's it for me.
All right, then we're good.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, moving along with the agenda. The next is item 4.3, Siena Condominiums. This is for comments to the planning commission. It's a pre-application major land development / comprehensive permit. This is in and around the intersections of Main Street and Jersey Court. The applicant proposes to construct 8 duplex structures for a total of 16 residential units on approximately 2.2 acres of land. It's a comprehensive permit. A minimum of 25% of the proposed units must be deed restricted as affordable, and site access is proposed from both Main Street and Kenray Drive. Dennis, we're gonna have you kick us off again.
All right, planning comments on Siena condos are as follows. Planning staff notes that the recent code changes will allow for residential development in the VMC zone, and the maximum allowable density for the subject parcel is 2 units per acre under standard zoning provisions. This development is being proposed as a state-enabled comprehensive permit application with access to public water and sewer, which makes it eligible for a density bonus of additional 5 units per acre for lots. Therefore, the maximum allowable density for this development is 7 units per acre. The applicant must formally request the right to access Kenray Drive from the town council prior to the next stage of review, whether such right is achieved via easement over the town-owned strip of land separating the subject parcel and Kenray Drive via acquisition of said property or other means. Assuming site access to both Main Street and Kenray Drive is achieved through the town council, staff recommend the applicant design the roadway through the subject parcel for one-way circulation, entering on Main Street and exiting via Kenray Drive. This would include narrowing the proposed width, installing signage, and potentially other treatments. Such a roadway design would be subject to further traffic analysis and review. The applicant shall provide itemization of all necessary waivers as a comprehensive permit at the next stage of review. The planning staff is seeking a significant landscape buffer along the western edge of Lot 12, where Siena Lane is proposed to be built, to ensure reasonable screening and separation between the proposed roadway and the neighboring houses. Additionally, the applicant should evaluate the existing landscape buffer that's present along the property boundaries to understand what existing trees, vegetation should be protected, preserved, and what areas may need additional plantings to strengthen the existing buffer. Planning staff have concerns with the proposed demolition of 2 houses situated on lots 12 and 13, and replacement with a 22-foot wide driveway and stormwater basin would amount to a significant disruption in Washington Village historic streetscape. While staff acknowledge that the houses may be beyond repair, staff encourage the applicant to explore locating an additional 1 to 2 residential units and structure or structures on these lots in a similar location as the existing historic houses. This would require relocating proposed stormwater infrastructure as needed. Design elements such as siding, massing, and architectural features to mimic the existing houses will mitigate the impacts of their demolition and better ensure the compatibility of the project with surrounding neighborhood. At the next plan stage of review, the applicant to provide the following: a traffic impact study with potential peer reviewed at the town's discretion, a landscape plan showing the locations of new plantings and identification of existing trees that will be preserved, and a letter of eligibility from RA Housing that indicates their support for this project.
Thanks, Dennis. Bill, you comment on this one?
Yeah, I have a general comment. On project completion, a certificate of conformance from the civil engineer of record shall be required. The COC shall certify that the constructed project meets all required standards, regulations, and specifications in the permitting and construction documents. The COC shall be focused on site civil related work or concludes but is not limited to all drainage system components, drainage related to retaining wall placement, earth grading, roadway subbase, pavement and curbing, concrete flat work, underground utilities, sewer, electric, water, etc., survey markers and monuments, fire cisterns, signage, fencing and landscaping. Civil engineer of record shall partner with qualified subconsultants to perform necessary inspection-related duties. If engineer of record does not perform these duties in-house, all coordination between EOR and inspection subconsultants shall be finalized before construction commences. Separate COCs shall be required from the structural engineer of record and the geotechnical engineer of record as applicable. A certificate of occupancy shall not be issued until COCs are received and accepted by the town. 3 comments on the plans. Submission of a town of Coventry soil erosion and sediment control application will be required for the project. Town of Coventry residential sewer connection application will be required for the proposed sewer connection, and stormwater management shall be provided for the site and meet state and town requirements. End of comment.
Oh, and then, this one, okay, I think I understand. This one might be the police chief. Moving down to you, Chief Heiss.
So I kind of echoed the same thing that was said earlier, with the applicant should consider one-way traffic pattern, which would increase the safety of traffic entering and exiting the development. To me, it just makes more sense that way if possible.
Thanks, Chief. That's you, Chief Katie. Which one's in your area?
Yes. Yep, same thing, my comment as follows. The water supply for fire suppression will need to be within the maximum distance from the nearest hydrant allowed by the fire code. I did not see the hydrant on a site plan, although I am aware there are hydrants out there on Main Street. I'm not sure of the distance of them. The road through the parking lot from Main Street out to Kenray Street shows 22 feet wide, which is acceptable. Our only concern would be that if cars end up getting double parked, that fire apparatus, it'd be tough to get through as far as passing through. Now, I know that's a problem everywhere in the town, like that's just not specific to them building this development, but it looked like to me on the map that each unit had, I think, 2 spots or 4 spots per unit. It's not very neatly laid out, but any overflow, where would they be? Are they gonna be out in that 22-foot wide street?
Yeah.
So if you get one on each side, a 7-foot car, take 14 feet out of that 22.
Yeah.
And it makes us tough for us to go in and make that turn back out to Kenray. So that's it, and maybe suggest like some fire apparatus marking, on the street curbs or something in front of where there's not supposed to be any parking in front of the unit.
Gotcha. So like not just a no parking sign,
Right,
but,
like
fire
right,
lane or something.
right. Other states do it, but it's not, it is in the code with the mark for fire parking. It's just a suggestion as far as from our end that goes.
And then this one's gonna really hang on the idea that it's the town council, Tim, that's gonna give you an easement to get to Kenray. If that easement is achieved, planning staff is suggesting that one-way traffic through the site might be a good idea, which obviously for fire purposes, that might include being able to narrow the lane, but we would then, you'd be clear that you're not dealing with two-way traffic, you're dealing with
Somebody coming out as we're going in, right?
Yeah, so you're basically dealing
Yeah.
with Siena Lane would be
Yeah.
the way in. They'd loop around in a counterclockwise fashion and then come out Kenray.
Right.
This is a pre-app. This is not binding, really. This is just exploring that. I think the idea is that if that happened, it was a one-way, we probably are looking at different, perhaps different widths of the road, and we can still be looking at those parking comments that you just made about no parking.
The radius and the width look good to us, except for possibly the parking overflow. There was one concern that I didn't comment on, though, I didn't see it in the plan, was the approach angle going in Siena Lane off of Main Street, that it's not too steep. It has to meet the requirements, I believe it's 1 foot and 20 feet is the slope max, so you don't end up with sometimes you get that steep uphill, the truck's 5 miles, it actually gets stuck on the road. Because of the length of the trucks and the tail hanging over the edge.
Yeah.
And then my observation of that, just a side note, and I didn't comment on that, is going that direction of counterclockwise, pulling out of Kenray, although that is one way from everybody exiting like the skate park, is tough because you can't see around that corner towards the community center.
Is it?
So if you were to empty out on Siena Lane, you can see Main Street much easier to come out. If you go in Kenray, even though Kenway's like a one-way coming out.
Oh,
of the pond.
yeah. I don't think
That corner's tough right there. People wait forever to get out.
we definitely are not looking to change. Well, I'm not gonna speak, but maybe Kevin has history here. I don't think we're looking to change Kenray as being two-way or changing the direction.
Right.
So I think that's gonna remain one way out. In our estimation, one of the big issues for traffic is that the light backs stuff up.
Right, back stuff
So
up.
to some
exactly, yeah.
degree, being able to push the outbound traffic farther away from the light
The light,
had a
yeah.
benefit. At the end of the day, these are just ideas.
Yeah.
We're not traffic engineers. We think that you guys, when you come for the first binding stage, you'll have a traffic study with you. I think we'd be looking for you guys to use that study to suggest, how you're framing your argument for the site circulation. It seems to make sense to us that if you get to Kenray, that's a one-way out. It almost lends itself to, Siena being a one-way in isn't a terrible idea at that point.
Mm.
But those are just our quick comments. And then, before we move on, in a setting like this would all be private property, private infrastructure, private street. Would you be looking for streetlights in this setting, chief?
It would be good, right, yeah.
Can you add that as a comment as well, Dennis? All right, I think does that cover all your comments, chief?
Yeah, it looks like the road works for us, you know, the radius looks a little tight coming out on the Kenray, because Kenray is narrow.
Yeah.
You know, it's a narrow road, so pulling back out onto that and taking that left, there's gotta be a pretty good radius right there, to take that left.
Yep.
The long trucks.
Yep.
I think the angles look good on that one, so I think we're good.
Okay.
So it was just mainly the water supply and the parking thing, which we can't enforce that.
Yeah.
People are gonna park in the street, they'll park in the street, it just might get tough, we need to get through that.
Makes sense. Rick, can we get any comments on this one?
Yeah, this one has some issues every parcel doesn't lend itself for maximum development. And traffic issues here are tantamount to setting ourselves up for an issue. As we indicated, Kennel Reg is one way, it is narrow. We need to take into account when Parks and Recreation has events, whether it be softball games or basically softball games, tennis, fills those parking lots, and the traffic coming out of Kenray is backed up all the way into the parking lot from Main Street. At Main Street, looking west, you're at a curve right there, and it's difficult to see the traffic coming down by the community center. So, as it was indicated before, also the traffic backing up towards Dave's Marketplace, like South Main Street, is going to create the stacking issue. I believe that the town easement is an important thing to look at, whether or not the town is, we suggested the town that the easement be granted. Parks and Recreation input should be taken into this big event here to put their, people have better numbers of where they are in the time of years that they're gonna have issues. And you also need to allow DOT physical alteration permit for access into the Main Street also.
Yeah.
And you answered the question whether it's public or private, now that they have that. Those are my concerns, and it's basically all around traffic.
And aside from the peak time where there's an event, a recreation event, if you put that specific issue aside for a minute, are there issues in your mind with the Kenray as it exists today for suitability of that additional traffic?
Kenray can't handle today traffic that it has.
But that's largely related to the event, right? It's not
Well,
day to day.
Not, well, the day-to-day also, because again, you have a very narrow road coming down. A truck can't make it down Kenray, we have to go out the other exit.
Gotcha. So then the only alternative is if Kenray becomes a street we don't want to touch, we've got all of the circulation coming in and out through Siena. Which maybe it has the benefit of better sight line, but it has the disbenefit of being closer to that intersection.
Yeah, I would see Kenray as an emergency exit and use it to widen that Siena lane at Main Street. So if you have two-way traffic and you have the benefit of the light giving you some pause to get in and out, but Kenray itself, I have an issue. That's my opinion.
All right.
Kev, is that some of the issue with the trucks on Kenray, is that due to the like that departure angle as well? Because I didn't
You
look at that angle on,
You
it
have to
doesn't
get
show
out
it on the plot map, that's steep right there.
You almost have to get out into Main Street to look the traffic. coming
Yeah, and that's what I was
coming
thinking,
from.
it's really bad, yeah. I've
And
seen
that-
a lot of close calls over there, but that angle with the truck concerns me. I was wondering if that's why you had the problem with the truck.
And that and the width.
Yeah,
It's okay now, but think about, people don't look at this, when we have actual snow and we have snow just on both sides, it really
It's
narrows that
narrow.
road even more so.
right.
There's no place to put the snow.
Are the sightline issues at Kenray anything that can be addressed or fixed, or are they based on topo?
Topo and angle of what means, how Main Street continues westbound.
Yeah, it kind of curves around, so it
Yeah.
creates a hidden.
Correct.
Okay. All right. Well, then this one, I think just needs some more discussion about that. And clearly you're hearing from the town, we're giving you two different directions.
Yes.
And at the end of the day, we're all talking about traffic, and none of us are traffic engineers. We're just, giving you ideas on what existing constraints are. and what potential opportunities are.
Because we have the opportunity to do the emergency gate to Kenwood. And connect it. We can actually put a T at the end there too, and not even have a connection to Kenwood.
Henry.
Kenwood,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
An emergency breakaway gate wouldn't do that.
Yeah, exactly. That's what the plan is showing.
It's sorry, how to get out for that.
Has the gate there. But we can, you know, when the traffic engineer takes a look at this, we could take a look at the site distance, it's looking west.
Yeah, I mean, I think here, obviously, the traffic issue here isn't trip generation.
No, yeah.
In this setting, in this context, you know, you've got clear access to Main. It's really about the turning movements and being near the intersection. So it's about how you know, what's a good operation of turning movements in and around an intersection that does back up. You know, what happens at peak
Yeah.
is that intersection backs up. And those that know it better will probably be able to say how frequently it'll back up past where Siena goes in, which is probably at each peak hour, there's probably a chunk of like maybe a half an hour in the day. I don't know how frequently it would back up all the way to Kenray. Have you guys ever seen the traffic line up so far? It's backed up to Kenray.
In the morning occasionally, but
Community center.
just for, yeah, a short period of time.
Goes all the way back to the community center, like
Yeah.
another half a block.
You also have
We
buses
get around
that,
4
in
o'clock.
the afternoon,
Yeah.
buses when they're dropping off or stopping anywhere, it backs up all over.
Yeah.
So to me, that's what we're looking at from a traffic question is just, you know, what's the best way, given that constraint, to introduce new, I guess you would say the traffic that will be coming onto Main Street. Where's the best way to introduce that traffic? And then, I mean, the idea is that the sightline constraints at Henry are not nothing. So if we're in a tight situation, we want to be mindful of that. I'm sure the sightline constraints at this Siena are what you make of them. You know, I don't think that there's significant landscaping there, so you probably have better sightlines.
Yeah.
It's all conversational, but you know, you're hearing two different perspectives from the town staff, so.
That's why we're here.
And then ultimately, you know, the planning commission might have its own perspective. And, you know, you'll be able to get a read of that, and all of this is just helpful. Tim, when you come back, are you looking to take advantage of the pending master plan? Coming back on the state law for this as a comp permit?
We'd like to, if possible, if this is straightforward enough with traffic. We'd like to actually combine master and preliminary,
Oh, wow. Okay.
but
Well, right now, I mean, if you submitted to me right now, your next stage is prelim. I believe come July, the state law will say that you have a master plan coming back as an option. You can still combine them.
so
I mean, at that point, my only thing is that there might be push and pull on what the traffic study is suggesting, and it, to me, I don't, you know, and the other piece of this is, no matter what, you could go to the town council in between now and when you submit to explore the easement. No matter what, even if it's a fire gate, I think they're gonna want you to secure an easement. You're gonna be paving.
easement's an easement.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But they're probably gonna wanna know, are you seeking an easement for a fire gate? Or are you seeking an easement for regular daily traffic? And so I think you guys are gonna have to kind of sort that aspect out. Obviously, the planning commission next week is an opportunity to get better feedback and get a feel for all of that. Then ultimately we'll respond to the direction that you're indicating with your site plan. But you're thinking you wanna skip over an independent master plan at this stage?
Well, currently, right now, we're over 10 units. Wouldn't we have to do a master plan?
Well, as a comprehensive permit,
Yeah.
if you submitted a comp permit right now, there's no such thing as a master plan stage. We couldn't offer it to
Okay.
you if you wanted it.
Okay.
The state law changing on that, so a comprehensive permit
Yeah.
is gonna get a master plan stage back. Presumably, if the legislature passes what the pending bills are. So presumably, you're by
Is that
July.
mandatory? Mandatory? Master or
You're
optional?
pinning me down on something, I'm not sure. I think an applicant always has the choice to say, even if these are two stages, even today, master plan, you're allowed to request to combine stages. Usually a request to combine stages is something I like to handle with the board. So if you really feel strongly you wanna go right to prelim, your options are, you could submit me a prelim within the next month. And that would vest you in this current state law era, and away you go, even if the prelim hearing occurs after the fact.
Yeah.
The other is that you could use pre-app to suggest to the commission, would you entertain a combined master and prelim, and then even if you submit July, August and state law says it, at least you've got that. To me, the idea is that the transportation aspect is loose enough where do you really want to do a full engineering design of this, not knowing the feedback on where we want the traffic coming in and out of and how wide these roads are going to be.
Okay, my big thought is we either connect to the side street there,
Henry.
Fenway, or not. I mean, it's not a lot of design change looking at it. I mean, I can terminate that with a T, or I can connect.
Yep.
I can have an emergency gate, I can have full access. There's really not a lot of change at that area.
Yeah, the design is.
It's, yeah, to me, we're gonna have water and sewer. It's not gonna change
If you,
either option.
if Kenray ended up being connected for daily traffic.
Yeah.
And then we suggested one-way traffic all the way through, you probably are narrowing your streets altogether.
Which is an easy change. I mean,
So you would
literally,
design it for the wider.
getting
road.
bigger is difficult,
Yeah.
getting smaller is generally easy.
So you'd manage stormwater for the bigger
The
design?
bigger design. Well, it's not really ringing bells in my head to go through a master plan unless there's just so many issues changing. It seems like that connection point is really the only issue going on.
And then the only other thing is, you've heard from staff that we were actually suggesting to add a structure towards the front, which to us was more just to create the rhythm and the pattern of the street that we have there.
Yeah.
You're not often gonna hear us suggest that you add units to a plan. That's another piece that, you get feedback from the planning commission, and, see what you do there. But, I don't know if you wanna go in with a master with that unit there. I don't know what your thoughts are on having an additional unit or two up front.
Go either way. I mean, I'm not really for it or against it. It's something we're gonna look at. What I heard today was it'd be nice to have some overflow parking. So I'd like to fold in a few spots.
Yep.
Get that off the travel lanes.
Yep.
So
We
you could
just
probably
create
have
like
some-
another pull out somewhere in
I
the
was
site,
thinking maybe some parallel parking along the entranceway on the right.
one along Siena.
Yeah, coming up on the right, looks like we can have maybe 2-3 spots there
What do
and
you think about that, chief?
Yeah, I see what he's looking at right there, right across from where it says lane, maybe some angle parking where at least the cars are out of the road a little bit, right?
Yep.
Any overflow, and it's only a short walk to their unit if they had to.
It's dawning on me, you're gonna need to design like some location where all the mail goes. I don't know if you had a spot in mind. That's the USPS is now forcing everyone to a consolidated centralized mail. So this is not 16 units,
Yeah.
isn't this sort of thing where it's like, oh my gosh, you could probably site that thing somewhere in the middle of your design and it's not gonna be like a road obstruction.
Hmm.
But you're gonna need to find a place for that somewhere.
Even up top on the left where there's an opportunity for a couple parking spaces over there as well.
We can get snow storage also.
Yeah.
Get someplace to put that snow in the barn.
I think you've heard enough from us, Tim. Did you have any other questions or feedback?
That's good feedback. That's why we have this. I
Yep.
like it.
All right, Tim.
Okay, appreciate it.
You're welcome. All right, I will call the last item on the agenda. This is item 4.4 Highlands at Hopkins Hill. This is for comments to the planning commission. It is a preliminary plan, major land development. Applicant right in and around Dante Boulevard. Applicant proposes to develop 66 detached single-family condominium units on the vacant portion of the subject parcel, along with internal roadways and associated site amenities. Public water and sewer connections are anticipated. So why don't we keep the rhythm? In fact, I guess, Joe, you're gonna be the first one up going around this way.
All right, I have a general comment. On project completion, a certificate of conformance from the civil engineer of record shall be required. The COC shall certify that the constructed project meets all required standards, regulations, and specifications in the permitting and construction documents. The COC shall be focused on site-related work. Work includes, but is not limited to, all drainage components, drainage related to retaining wall placement, earth grading, roadway subbase, pavement and curbing, concrete flat work, underground utilities, sewer, electric, water, etc., survey markers and monuments, fire cisterns, signage, fencing, and landscaping. Civil engineering of record shall partner with a qualified subconsultant to perform necessary inspection-related duties. If engineer of record does not perform these duties in-house, all coordination between EOR and inspection subconsultant shall be finalized before construction commences. Separate COCs shall be required from the structural engineer of record and geotechnical engineer of record as applicable. A certificate of occupancy shall not be issued until required COCs are received and accepted by the town. Second comment, submission of a town of Coventry soil erosion and sediment control application will be required for the project. And then I have 5 comments on the plans. Sheet 3 of 14, notes and legend, layout and materials, note 5. Engineering takes exception to this note. House locations shall be generally fixed during the design phase. Any changes during construction shall be reflected in the civil engineer of record prepared and approved as-built plans submitted during the building permit phase. Sheet 3 of 14, notes and legend, grading, drainage, and utility notes, note 3. Note shall be valid only for minor finish grading changes at the discretion of the town engineer. Any grading changes during the construction phase other than minor shall be reflected in civil engineer of record prepared and approved as-built plans submitted during the building permit phase and included in the civil engineer of record certificate of conformance. Note 3, sheet 3 of 14, notes and legend, grading, drainage, and utility notes. Note 6, all retaining wall and steep slope design shall be provided during the major land development design phase. On project completion, a certificate of conformance will be required from the structural and/or geotechnical engineer of record to certify that construction retaining walls and steep slopes meet all required standards, regulations, and specs. Retaining walls and steep slopes added during construction shall be reflected in as-built plans and included in applicable engineer of record certificates of conformance. Note 4, sheet 3 of 14, notes and legend, grading, drainage, and utility notes, note 7. Bill specifications shall be provided during the design phase by the civil engineer of record. All cut and fill work shall be included in the civil engineer of record certificate of conformance. Note 5, sheet 3 of 14, notes and legend, grading, drainage, and utility notes, note 15. Civil engineer of record shall certify separation of building slabs to seasonal high water table and include in the CEOR certificate of conformance. So,
Thanks, Joe. Mr. Berardo.
All right. Planning's comments are as follows. First, for aesthetic as well as safety reasons, staff recommends the applicant screen the existing drainage basins with treatments that are consistent with other basins elsewhere in the Highlands condominium development, such as planting hedges or installing picket fences around the basin's perimeters. Second, without the benefit of reviewing as-builts for the approved and constructed drainage basins, staff cannot independently verify whether the basins were initially built and remain to this day in conformance with RIDEM's 20-year-old approval. Nevertheless, a RIPD's permit was granted based on written certification from the applicant that stormwater practices were constructed in accordance with the site plans. Staff will expect as-built and written certification to be submitted prior to issuance of a certificate of occupancy. Third, staff seeks a peer review of the applicant's traffic impact statement to better understand the implications of the center of New England Boulevard, Hopkins Hill Road intersection degrading to a level of service F as projected in the traffic statement. The applicant did not agree mainly due to cost concerns and to the fact that a traffic study was submitted and accepted when the original Highlands application was made. Without the benefit of a peer review, staff cannot state with certainty that this project does not meaningfully contribute to the projected traffic burden for this area. Staff will seek the Planning Commission's guidance as to whether a peer review is warranted at this time. Fourth, the applicant has indicated that it does not believe waivers are required for sidewalks or street trees because A, the 2000 era subdivision regulations under which the project is vested pegged sidewalk requirements to specific zones and they were not required in the business park zone. And B, no regulations called for street trees along private roadways. And fifth, staff will seek the planning commission's guidance as to whether a waiver should be granted for required legal documents, namely those which would speak to whether the proposed development will be incorporated into the existing Highlands HOA at this stage of review. The applicant indicated that they have not made a final decision on joining the existing HOA.
Thank you. Chief Heights.
So for this one I had, with all the potential development in the area, a peer review should be completed to properly evaluate the impact this development would have on the roadways in the area.
Thank you. And then you can't speak for this one, but I think it's fair to note for the record that the Hopkins Hill Fire District, no comments at this time. And it's noted that it's due to an unforeseen illness by the previous presiding commenting body, Marshall Vincent. And that, Chief Katie, you were gonna work to see, work with Hopkins to identify a person that may be able to offer us comments.
Yep,
We're kind of up against it.
that'll be Chief Poppin.
Chief Poppin
Is aware of the project and we'll have comments going forth.
Great, thank
Even
you.
after today's meeting.
Yeah, that would be great. I think we'll certainly want their eyes on it and we'll want to know,
Yep.
our target would be, and I'm happy to be amenable and discuss with him on his timing, just so he understands what is, the nature of the project, if he has questions. If he has all the materials and he feels comfortable commenting, it'd be great to get those by Wednesday.
Okay,
Imagine that what we're gonna do is turn those comments into a staff report on Thursday, and then that report has to be basically done by the end of the day on Thursday.
okay.
It's just good for us to know anything that we may not be thinking about. And then, I did receive a public comment on this one already. It didn't indicate whether the comment was for the planning commission or for TRC, but for the iteration of TRC members, I'm just gonna read it. Public, we don't take oral public comments at these meetings. This is really more just, there's something that exists on the record, so I'm just gonna let everyone know what exists. This is from, an Edward Foss. Mr. McLean, public safety concern regarding the proposed secondary road, Tammy Jean Drive, exiting onto Stephanie Drive. I see no evidence of a traffic study or safety evaluation of the impact of traffic onto Stephanie Drive. I would note that the applicant did submit a traffic study. Stephanie Drive is a walking road. There are no sidewalks. People use Stephanie for walking pets, joggers, baby strollers, etc. If a second exit is required, it would make sense to connect Dante Boulevard at the southeastern end of the development. Another factor to consider is the speed limit on Stephanie Drive is 15 miles per hour. That's a comment that has accepted on the record and that we'll pass on to the planning commission. Director, maybe you have any comments?
Yeah, just a couple of comments. One is that the traffic is my concern. We know that this is increasing, the entire area is increasing. And I concur with the comments of the engineer that peer review should be done so that you look at the traffic in the totality of the entire development area. And if this is a private development, that the HOA should be developed, whether they join the existing or develop their own.
They certainly will develop an HOA. But the code era of the time suggests that preliminary plan is when they owe us legal documents, of which an HOA would be one. I think the planning staff had asked the question to the applicant, are you guys joining the existing HOA or not? They said they're still not sure. And I think that critical piece of information is something we're looking for. I don't think we're looking for them to fully vet out every detail of the legal documents. We want to know, are they just going to, incorporate into existing or not? I envision that'll be a question that will likely come up through the course of this review.
That's fine. You want to just hand this?
Yep.
That's all I have.
Thank you. So please, and then we haven't met you yet. Please feel free to introduce yourself.
Hello, everyone. My name is Julissa Arce. I'm legal counsel on behalf of the applicant. I'm filling in for Joelle Rocha today. I'm sure you're familiar with her. She's great, So for today, I just wanted to give a brief introduction on the different comments that were presented today, and then I'm going to shoot it over to engineering. So the main concerns here is we wanted to just address that this particular project, as you know, and it was provided in the documents today, is vested under the 2003, 2001 ordinance, zoning ordinance, and the 2000 regulations. With that being said, there's certain things that were not required as part of the application that we will not be subject to. And as part of that, we do have a question of concern of the certificate of conformance and whether or not that is included in the 2001 zoning ordinance and 2003 subdivision regulations.
The question?
Yeah.
I mean, I would say the certificate of conformance and that process is related to a modern inspection process that we hold all projects to. So I think that that's a practice that staff has just to make sure we have the adequate amount of information to support our inspection. So I'll let others speak to it if they have other comments on it.
I have nothing to add.
And so with that being in the background, and lastly, there's also a series of consent orders and approvals that are subject to this project, and one of them being the write-in approval and the 2024 consent order that we have received. And moving forward with everything that is required, we are going to submit to them all of our plans, and we're happy to provide those to the town as well. And that is to the extent that we will be providing with any revisions, I believe, and I can refer to Dupree as well, in terms of as-built for the basins. But with that being said, everything, I want to go ahead and defer it to Dupree for the other technical questions from the town engineer. And I know the last thing here before I do that is for the traffic. We'll be having the traffic expert present at the planning board meeting, and so we'd like to defer any questions to that, so that we is able to address any questions on whether or not it is sufficient to have a peer review. And again, we are under the belief, and it is our position, that the report that was provided is comprehensive for the project here, and it includes everything that all traffic concerns for this particular project.
Understood. Yeah, no, that's fine. We agree. We can defer the question as to that. Obviously, you've seen the comments, but ultimately, this will move forward to the initial hearing next week, May 28th.
Yes.
And then ultimately, we're going to defer the conversations on the peer review to the planning commission. So, yeah, you can certainly, make your presentation and you can make any points that you wish to make there as well. And we'll ultimately we'll see what the planning commission's desire on that matter is.
Thank you.
Yep.
Greg Guglielmo from Dupree Engineering, just, Joe, just a couple of just general questions. On the COC piece, one thing that I think is difficult on some of these would be phasing. So I think you noted, and I just got these comments this afternoon, that a COC for the entire project would be required before we could get building permits. That may be difficult to do on this.
No, it would be before certificate of occupancy.
Okay, so even certificate of occupancy, to build all the roads and have them all approved before we get one unit certificate of occupancy would be difficult. I would assume with most projects, we would build this under some sort of phases. We may build a portion of the road, start building those units. They would be done before we would get to the rest.
Yeah, I'd be happy to work with the applicant to work something out in that respect.
Okay.
Yeah. Joe, you just want to know, when someone's seeking a certificate of occupancy, all of the improvements and grading in that area related to that unit are accounted for.
Yeah, so we'd obviously want to make that clear. We wouldn't have to build all the roads just to get.
Yeah,
to
yeah,
get
no,
roads.
we understand.
Yes.
Do you guys have formal phasing you're looking to do, or is it just more like the informal, you're gonna build it in a certain
The
direction?
informal type of phasing, it's a private development, private road, so we wouldn't want to, we're not bonding any of it, so we would want to, probably depend on market conditions,
Yeah,
how it works, okay.
Yeah.
You had noted also about, as-built, for the house locations, and by the way, we understand that if something dramatically changes, one thing that, and this may not exactly apply to this one, because we do think that the locations are pretty locked in because of the size of the units and the spacing between them. But a lot of times the unit style changes or the elevation may come up We're just curious about what your stand is on that in terms of as-built, because it's hard not knowing, the 66 new homeowners are gonna come in here, and they may say, well, I'd like this prep back 2 more feet, or I don't want this jog that's shown. What level of as-built?
So I
are you
have no
talking?
problem with minor changes like that. I just want them documented. So 15 years down the road, the town engineer can pull up a set of drawings and he can look at something that actually reflects what's built.
Yeah. Is there, and pardon me for not knowing this, do you require as part of your, building permit application, a plot plan that would have that information on it?
Mhm.
Okay. I don't think we have any walls or steep slopes here, so I don't think that'll apply on this one.
Although if you do want to have walls, I think we'd like to get that analysis on those on the plan now, if you know there's areas. you need to
Yeah,
add.
and this site is probably different than some other ones because it is so flat, so there's not a lot of opportunity for that.
Yeah.
Where the difficulty comes in on that, again, the same thing, if someone says, well, I'd like this unit picked up because I'm going to do a walkout or something, it makes it very difficult for us to plan all of those on most developments to get that accomplished. Because most of the time when we do these, and again, this project's a little bit different because we know what the building footprints are gonna be. But a lot of times we're dealing with a developer that might have 5 or 6 home styles. We don't know who's gonna build them, so we understand that concern dealing with on other projects in town. But yeah, I mean, on this one, I don't think we would see that happen.
Yeah, a lot of times with the grading, also, I'm just concerned with drainage and how it's diverted. I just want to make sure the intent of the change meets the
Sure.
intent that you saw when
Right.
you did your design. I don't want to send water to watersheds that weren't originally designed to receive that
Yeah.
water, or a separate catch basin system that's going to a basin where it wasn't supposed to originally. I just want the overall design to be in harmony with the changes.
Yeah, and that makes sense to work that through, like you said, on a plot plan type of.
And the other issue is sometimes, minor, small changes need to be looked at. You could flatten an area of the site out where previously there was slope, and now suddenly we have a flattened area where the water's not going anywhere. Which could create certain issues. So I think when we review these, and really it's Joe that reviews them. The whole goal is to ensure that if there is a change on the ground, we understand every grain of sand is not gonna be where you put it for your proposed grading plan. But that we're not diverting any of the stormwater to an ultimate different location or trapping it somewhere.
Yeah,
With small changes to a design.
yeah, and that's definitely easier for us to address in later stages, for us to guarantee that this is gonna be built exactly like this. That kind of gets to one of my last points around the, you just talked about, you mentioned about a certificate for the groundwater table at the foundations. Is that something that's normally required in the?
Well, I wanna, since there are, since these are built on a slab and there are some shallow water tables, I'd like to see you sign off on that is,
Is that
it's appropriate.
And we can definitely talk about that with our client. Is that something that's required now to do that, or something to be required of this project?
Yeah, no, all projects that are similar to this, and it's a similar situation.
Yeah, I mean, and again, I guess anything that becomes part of the approval, we're fine with. We're just curious if it's part of the normal course. Now, as I've never certified to a groundwater table on any of the homes that we've done in Coventry or any other town, but.
Yeah, we've certainly over the last calendar year elevated what we see as a minimum amount of inspection and certification at the inspection stage. But we're holding all projects across the board to the same level of information so that the inspections can move along smoothly. We understand that people change between the design and the ultimate. The goal is to reduce the amount of change between what's being designed and what's ultimately constructed, but we're getting into a pattern where sometimes it's wildly different.
Yeah.
So we're raising, we're including stipulations across the board for all projects to ensure that what we get at the final construction inspection, which comes at building permit C of O, generally meets the design, or if it doesn't, and there's a significant change, that we have a certification that, from an engineer.
Right. Yeah, on the groundwater tables, we would not want a contractor to put them lower than what we have on the plan. We're putting them higher. We've never seen that as a concern, so I guess, we have to see if it's not currently part of the regulations, if it becomes something that's part of the decision, we work with that to our client and see.
There are some sections of the Highlands that do have water problems. So that, that's another side of caution, that, that happen in this
And
area.
it's, to that point, and what always makes it difficult for us, we've never done testing in 33 years I've been doing this, we've never done testing in every single home. So when you dig that foundation, something's gonna happen. It's either a big boulder or there's a, there's water table that's perched in one area that isn't somewhere else, and so these always end up adjusting. We wouldn't want this to become a mile of red tape over, something that you just can't
My
anticipate at
intent
this
isn't to
stage.
make it a mile of red tape. I just want to ensure that what you're calling out on the plan is how it's constructed. That's all.
Yeah, and like I said, to my point, they usually come up.
Yeah, that's
We
fine.
never
Yeah.
recommend that they go down.
Yeah,
from what we have.
no, coming up is fine. I
Right.
come up, but, as long as it doesn't interfere with other design elements.
Sure,
But, yeah, that's my only concern with that.
okay,
It's not to make anybody's life difficult. It's just to ensure the end product.
yeah, no doubt.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Any other questions for me or?
Any other questions, comments from committee members? I'm all set on my end.
And I believe to fully address questions regarding the HOA documents.
Yep.
So we are still currently deciding on whether or not we will be officially joining the Highlands HOA. It's our intent to, however, we do have the ability to have the option to withdraw from that. And so we want to ensure we'll be providing the finalized documents to you when that decision has been made. So when it comes to that time, we are requesting that is provided at final plan approval. And we are more than happy to provide you with any documentation. It will be essentially the same documentation that the town already has for Highlands, or in the event that we do create our own, we will provide that for your review.
Yeah, understood. I think the code of the time suggests as a checklist item that this is the stage where we need all legal documents. We want to be realistic about that. We're not expecting a full soup to nuts HOA covenants agreement. This would be too early in the process. I think ultimately it's a waiver to be provided in terms of a level of information. We're going to defer that waiver to the planning commission, and ultimately I think there will be questions, and the planning commission may have questions that the intent of to join the existing HOA, to not really hear a little bit more from you on where you're at. I would ask you to advance that and expect that at the planning commission, people may ask very direct questions about that. At the end of the day, ultimately, staff is allowing you to get right to the planning commission and see if they're going to be accepting of that. I think we understand that we're probably heading to some degree of waiver. It's just, can you give us any written confirmation of where you're going? And that would give us some amount that the planning commission could say, we can waive because we have an understanding of the direction they're moving. I can imagine the neighbors will ask, the planning commission may ask, and that will become a discussion topic. So I think that we're heading towards a waiver, but I think it's a bit of can we learn a little bit about where you're going? Is there something you're willing to put in writing in terms of where you're moving? Maybe issues or restrictions that you have, what your pivot points are, will be interesting for us to
I
understand.
mean, I think that this is mainly that, Bob, you correct me if I'm wrong in this, but the sale of the parcel allowed for either to be part of it or not be part of it.
Yeah, so it is part of the Highlands. That being said, I have the right to withdraw it. So if there's issues with the Highlands Association, they have budgetary issues, they have to approve my designs. If they want to approve my designs, I can withdraw.
Understood.
So it's not my intent to withdraw, but it's a back pocket exit strategy. So, again, we are fully intending to be part of the Highlands. And as such, those documents are already recorded. They'll stay exactly the same. We don't have the right to change them. So down the road, we may withdraw, more than likely not. And at that time, if we did withdraw, we would submit documents or whatever we're gonna do.
On the concerns you have, which is, let's say there's budgetary issues, the existing HOA must have monies and you're wondering how they're spent, how that would work with you. And your other questions on would they have some sort of design oversight? Have you made initial contact with the HOA?
Yeah,
leadership now?
I did some budgetary work a while ago. And I haven't submitted design plans to them yet, because I'm still working on them. But I know what their expectations are, and I don't see any reason why they're not gonna approve them.
But you
Their big concern was that the roof lines stay the same, the color scheme stay the same, fairly generic, fairly specific issues that I don't see any reason why we won't be able to buy.
Okay,
So
it's not
it-
site
it-
design issues, it's like building structure. Yeah.
Right.
Have you made, have you had dialogue with them over the last month since you prepared this?
I have had dialogue. I'm trying to think what the dialogue has been. We've talked about wells for irrigation. We've talked about, the mailbox center. So nothing to do with the specific plans. Although they gave me their parameters for the plans, on their, requirements for the plans, and I don't see any reason why we won't be able to comply. Again, it's strictly a backdoor strategy that maybe our intent is today, but maybe in 3 or 4 months, that changes. And I've got the right to do that. I've got the right to withdraw it. And as such, if we were to withdraw it, we would just create our own association and submit those documents.
Yeah, and I mean, the planning commission may want to hear some of that, just to have a better reference point on what's your intent. It sounds like your intent is to join,
It's 100%.
but there's certain limitations and there's certain issues that would cause you to say you'd use an alternative strategy. And the planning, people I think might just want to hear about that. At the end of the day, the planning commission has the ability to grant a waiver from saying, we don't need additional documentation. We're going to defer that to them.
Yeah, again,
Do you-
you've already got the documentation in the intended path, so it's only if we were to change it that we'd have to provide the new document.
Yeah. I'm assuming you guys from mailboxes, are you guys joining there must be off this subject site, is there a mailbox
They've
there?
got a large mail drop facility. It can't handle our units, so, I've received permission both from the post office and them to reconfigure it, and we get the proper amount in.
And this would be off the site zone?
It's on site. It's not on my site, it's on.
Yeah, it's on there,
it's
okay,
on
yeah,
the-
correct, yeah, it's off of, it's out of your limit of disturbance.
Right.
But you're basically proposing to make an improvement to their mailbox center as it exists now.
Exactly.
Is it you need more pull-off for cars, or you just need more
No,
space for the
no,
boxes?
they built, there's 2 of them actually. One of them is totally full with boxes.
Yep.
The second one has some room where if I take the boxes out, slide them left, and I provide, I think it's 3 different height boxes, taller boxes, we can get the proper amount in.
Yeah,
The problem that happened is the 2 developments that withdrew, Pine Hill and Granite Hill or something like that. They're the ones closest to the industrial area. They're using those facilities. So in order to accommodate all of us, we've got to.
Understood.
It's not a real big deal.
Do you need a change to how traffic would flow through there? It's really just, it's the landing, it's the curved area where someone would get up. You're just making some changes to where the box
To
is.
the actual structure that has the box.
Okay, got it. Yeah, no problems there.
So.
Yeah.
And even if we were to withdraw, we would probably still go there.
Yep.
We haven't discussed that part yet, but
Yeah.
we're not intending on withdrawing. I just need to reserve that right.
Yeah, and I think I'd just ask, at the meeting, you may want to provide some discussion to this extent, keeping in mind that staff's ultimately deferring the waiver on any, formal legal documents to the planning commission. I think they're going to want to hear what you just described, and then they may have questions, and they may want to see, if anybody else has comments on that. I'm sure you're probably going to get a handful of people from the existing Highlands development that are going to take an interest in this. They're going to want to come, they're going to ask questions. And we'll see what the planning commission's pleasure is in terms of what they're comfortable with, if they have certain direction for you as well.
Yeah, and regarding that public comment on connecting our road, I think it's.
Yeah, the one that I read.
Gene Stephanie or whatever the names are. That's part of the master plan, that's part of the overall development plan.
Yeah.
So we are connected to that.
Yep. Yep.
We're aware of the speed limits, we're aware of those sidewalks, and all the roads in there connect to similar roads.
Understood. Understood. Any other questions or comments from TRC members? Did you guys have anything else on your end?
That's everything that we have on ours. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Is there, are you thinking about maybe the staff report?
Yeah, we'll be wrapping it up, by the end of the day. It could be late on Thursday. I would assume by Friday. We'll be in a position to email you out the staff report. Whatever goes to the planning commission. I'll share with you.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Hey, Bob, how are you? Hey, good. Good to see you.
Thanks. Hey, Greg.
Thanks, guys.
Greg, you coming next week?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah? You're the ringleader? Go ahead. Thanks, Greg. We'll see you next week.
Getting too old for this stuff.
All right. I'm gonna adjourn. We'll turn that off. All right, that concludes all the formal business for this meeting of the Technical Review Committee. I consider the meeting adjourned
At.
at 2:55 PM.